Hello, everybody. Welcome to the August 21st Burlington Advisory Committee on Accessibility meeting. This is Nate Bizzaio, the chair of the committee, and I work for the Vermont Center for Independent Living Burlington office. I figure we could just go around and everybody introduce themselves and where they work. So I'm going to go off my screen. And John, you are first up.
Thanks, Nate. John Adams Calls in the Planning Division of the Burlington Parks Department.
Great. Laura Wheelock.
Hi, Laura Wheelock, Senior Public Works Engineer for the City of Burlington.
Max. Are you a guest?
Hi, everyone. I'm Max Medalinsky. I am a project manager for Burlington Parks and Recreation.
Great. Vanessa.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Vanessa Santos Eugenio. You share pronouns, and I work in the Human Resources Department as our Talent Development and Diversity Manager.
Scott.
Hi, everybody. Scott Barker, CIO for the City of Burlington.
Laura Siegel.
Hello, my name is Laura Siegel. I work for the Department of Disability, Aging, Independent Living Services. And we have an interpreter here today, Virginia.
And Allie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Allie Fuddy. I am the program manager for the Northeast Resource Center for Vision Education at UMass Boston. But I am myself a visually impaired Burlington resident.
Congratulations on the new gig, Allie.
Yeah, thanks. It's exciting new job. I was with the Vermont Association of Blind before this, for those who may know me from there.
So I'm just really quickly, for those of you who can see it, just posting the agenda up. I did email everybody in the agenda. We have a public forum, news and updates. I just put plans for the 2024 fiscal year, which was a lot of the stuff we kind of started on. Also, and I have a feeling we'll probably need to table some of these, since I know some of the people who are involved with the last conversation around the things like Michael Granson projects are not here. And things like, I know Scott mentioned moving information to the new server. I figured we could discuss that and move to trainings. But for right now, I figure we could just start with, I don't know if, and I'm gonna take down the agenda right now, this way. I don't know if anybody is here to participate in the public forum or anybody. I don't see anyone. So
I feel like, oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I feel like I always like jump in the public forum. I don't know if I can wear two hats in this, but I just have a very brief thing I want to mention to the committee, if that's okay.
That's the thing. I think since you are considered part of this committee, you could also be talking about news and updates, because this is
Oh,
where
okay.
we're talking
Well,
about. So we'll just bump that and go to this item.
Okay, awesome. I'll just keep it brief, but just one thing I want to bring to the committee's attention that maybe we want to think about just slightly. And I really noticed it as a Burlington resident here in the Old North End, is that now that there's this like new bike kind of thing, I'm not sure what the name of it is, but the like e-bikes, you know, that you can kind of like rent, that are just sort of everywhere in town now. I have noticed like some pretty significant accessibility challenges with that, and I know that there's like some effort to have people appropriately park those, but I often am running into them in the middle of the sidewalks. And like just the other day, I have a neighbor who's a power wheelchair user who walks her dog like along the sidewalk, and like couldn't go any further with her dog because there was one of those bikes in the middle of the sidewalk. So I just think it's just something maybe the committee could keep our eye on and like help to maybe advocate around, because I think it is something that, you know, could potentially have a significant impact on the community here, who have mobility challenges in Burlington.
Thank you for bringing that up, Ally. I have noticed that issue myself, and I did actually run into a incident like that over the weekend. Actually, I was out with my wife, kiddos, and we had some people, and there was one of those bikes. I do see John sitting here. I don't know if this is a Parks and Rec thing or where these bikes are through. Does anybody have any feedback on who does the bikes, what they're through? Okay, and I see Laura Wheelock opening her, because I do see that being, I do agree with Ali. I do see it becoming more and more of an issue. So
Yep,
Laura,
so Public Works has been generally the primary communicator with the vendor Bird, BIRD. They are independently contracted by CATMA. We are essentially consulting. They do have a hotline / text group for these kind of compliance issues where the bikes are being left in a way that is not approved, I guess is the best way to put it, by the department. So blocking sidewalks on private property, in miscellaneous places and against things they're not supposed to be. I am looking for that so I can share today where that is. But it is something that we are actively working to get better compliance and get the bikes out of the way.
yeah. And I wasn't sure who was overseeing those, but yeah. Wasn't there the company though? I thought I read it. Wasn't the company that was providing that, didn't they like go kaput, but the bikes are still there? I can't remember. I think I remember reading something about that somewhere.
The past bike share group went was financially unstable and went belly up. I don't have a nice way to put it.
Mhm.
And so this is the most recent procured bike share company. They launched, they're still in what they call their soft launch, which doesn't feel appropriate. We've encouraged better outreach, but they are still in their testing phase before launching publicly.
Laura, once you get that information, maybe we can write it, and maybe we can write like a group letter or something in the group just talking about the accessibility issues. I have no idea how it works though. I mean, I would think that people, I have no idea what the rent is. There's a rental or people have to return it back by a certain part, um, or any items like that. But you would think that, people would be asked to dock them at certain areas. Now, whether or not people can comply, you can never really control who does that. But
Yep. They're supposed to send a photograph to end their riding session, and that has to be approved by the company. Again, it is still part of the learning process. Having community input about unacceptable places where a bike share has been approved to be docked will be helpful. There's something else I was going to say and I forgot it. So.
And Laura shared a link to a WCAX news piece, which I am going to copy and I might email to the group so we have them. Thank you, Ali. Anything else you wanted to mention? You are muted, Ali. Or she might be chasing the kiddo.
No, I'm here. Sorry, I just didn't. I had muted myself and wasn't paying attention.
Okay.
No, that was all. I just think, and I know that like they're supposed to, so it'd be helpful maybe to have that text thing, and then maybe like some public awareness. Anyway, this is something we could put in the letter too, but just some public awareness, like maybe when they do their that's like quote unquote hard launch. I don't know what you call that, an official launch. If they're doing it in their soft launch right now, like just some like good Samaritan kind of things too, like if you just happen to be walking around and see one of these bikes on the sidewalk, like think about your, neighbors who might have mobility challenges that would be impacted by these bikes being there and pick them up. Like that would be, I think, a nice thing too for the the company to educate folks around, because you know, you can't rely necessarily on everybody to be responsible. But if folks like have it in, most people, I feel like if they had it in their mind, like, oh, I need to make sure these bikes aren't in the sidewalk, would just naturally pick them up and move them out of the way, whether it was their bike or not.
They are uncommonly heavy, but it might be something
Oh, is that
that,
true? Okay.
yeah, there might be a way, thinking really creatively, that we could request that the company allow somebody who's on the street 60 seconds to relocate a bike as a neighborly thing to do.
Mm.
You know, maybe request some sort of relocation free option. But no, I agree. I would love to be able to pick them up when I see them, but that's not something I'm even capable of doing.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
So
it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely one of those items I think has really good intentions, but you can't sometimes account for people who don't have personal responsibilities sometimes. So you just have to kind of work with try to make it work. Um, does anybody else have any news or updates they would like to share regarding anything? I see
I could just give
Max.
like a really little update about the
Okay.
because I am still involved in the New Americans project, if that's helpful to
Yeah.
go, since John Thomas isn't here. So even though I've left my job at BABI, I'm still working on that because I sort of was the person who initiated it, and I want to see it through. Also, just a Burlington community member. So the update right now is that we're moving forward with the so this is a gathering for and we're starting with the Somali Bantu community. It's going to be at the Somali like community center on Riverside in September. I could pull up the exact date if anybody wanted to know what it was. And we're going to have right now, like we're still kind of pinning folks down, but the plan is that there will be a representative from the Vermont Association of Blind and Visually Impaired there with interpreters to talk about our services. The Lions Club will be there to do general, like the Lions Club has a machine where you can like put your face in and it sort of sends out a reading and says, you know, if you might need glasses or not, and that will prompt you to go to an eye doctor. They will also have readers, I believe, that day to hand out to people who just like need readers to like you know, be able to access print, like, you know, glasses, reading glasses, just the over-the-counter ones. And then the other plan is that we're trying to have an optometrist there as well, to have conversations with people who possibly you know, have something that comes out of this machine that is like more atypical, because the machine will actually tell you like if it's a sort of suspects eye disease. So for the optometrist to maybe explain some things and help people get connected with, you know, we're trying to actually get an optometrist who's actually in practice still that maybe would be willing to take folks on. But we also have a retired optometrist on our board who might be willing to do it as well. And this is really just like a pilot for the you know, the rest of the New American sort of like identity communities. Eventually we plan to do all of them, but it was recommended to us by the folks sort of in communication with those various communities to start with one, you know, do your sort of iron out the wrinkles and then move on to other groups. So that's where that project is right now. I know VABI is incredibly grateful for the funding this committee provided for that purpose.
Holly, if you could provide an exact date and maybe just email it to the group, that would be great. I'm actually wondering more. I don't know if there's a way we can get anybody from VCIL there as well. We do help with funding for, you know, screen readers and some stuff. That might be something we could be there as well. I don't know if it's a little late on that, but I would certainly like to know the date and see if we can maybe get somebody there to participate, because I think that is a good thing to do. But if you can provide the exact date, that would be great. Okay, I see a picture of a rude little birdie, and I know that Max was going to go. So, Max, you wanna
Yeah, I just wanted to give a brief update on the waterfront park tactile sign. We, I hope, have put in our order. The last I had spoken to Steve at Touch Graphics, he said we were all set. I'm waiting just for a confirmation from him and for his first invoice, but that project should be moving forward, and hopefully we'll be getting that sign for installation this coming fall. Our permits have all been filed and accepted, and yeah, we should be squared away and ready for that whenever Touch Graphics is able to manufacture it and send it our way.
That's great. I do have to reach into my memory banks because I know we were all going to do some items like doing a shared group document. I'll have to look back about, so people know about where that textile is available. And as some other things, I know that Laura mentioned adding an ASL videos. Was that the videos that would go with Laura? Can you elaborate on what the video is? I know that you did want to see if there were any features for people who were blind deaf. Are you talking about adding ASL videos to when people put it over the tactile to provide some kind of ASL interpretation?
Well, I was thinking it would be nice to add ASL that could be sent out for deaf folks, that could be happening down on the waterfront with the verbiage that's there. I actually went to the waterfront myself and I saw some things, but I noticed there was nothing that provided sign language. And so I was thinking about a visitor who's deaf blind, who's there with someone else, I guess, but it would be nice if we could create some kind of guide or something that could be linked in with video content along the waterfront that included sign content.
Okay. Okay. I do need to look back and see what we did. I know we talked about using a shared document of some kind to get some information. I see Scott wanted to say something.
Yeah, if I recall, in my first conversation about this, there was the whole reason that we in IT got involved was because they wanted to put a QR code on the sign. And then that QR code would land on a website or a page that had, Laura, to your point, it may have videos, it may have additional information for various approaches. So there is the mechanism to do that, but I don't know where that landed in terms of that QR code. The idea was that we would have it, we'd host it here at the city, and then somebody else would provide the content. We'd have a QR code that would get you to it.
So the city of Burlington has their own YouTube channel, correct? Do they?
I don't know that we do. That's a good question.
DPW has
Well,
our
if not, that would make it easy in terms of having a playlist of all the ASL videos that could be created to be coupled with the signs.
Yeah, I know Vanessa wanted to go, so let's.
I was just going to say, at present, at least to my knowledge, there isn't an overall YouTube site for the city of Burlington, but it's more individual departments on their own volition have put out content that's really based on the work that they do for the community.
So I'm going back and I need to go through the meeting minutes and I'll go, I believe, but this could be something. And again, I don't know how we would establish this, but the idea was, and this is something I need to add on my ever-growing to-do list. I was going to create a shared document. We are going to provide like little things about accessibility features for different parts that were gonna take the cue like about things that were available, like the textile sign. But then maybe when we have that, we could also find a way to create a Burlington Advisory Committee on Accessibility YouTube page that somehow could be linked, that we can be able to put up content on that. Now, how we create that content is going to be a different matter, whether it means something that we'll need to create ourselves using videos or whether we use any existing things. But I think the first step would be for me to take that shared document, and I'm actually looking through. I actually had a I had a document created on my iCloud that's called Information Burlington Advisory Committee Accessibility Information, but nothing's on it. So at least I started an online blank document, and I never had it. But I think the key is to kind of add what kind of media we can have. And I think to Scott's point, the idea was to have a link to this. But I think the agreement was that we were going to have different people from outside parties kind of putting the accessible to put the accessible information on there. But I do like the idea of a YouTube page, at least for something. And I guess the question is what needs to be done for a committee to create something like that? City sanctioned. I don't want to. Like I said, I use my own personal YouTube for these videos, but I wouldn't want to do anything. Yeah, Vanessa.
One of the things I always go back to, and I know I'm saying a thing many of us have heard from me, is just thinking about what is the most sustainable model, because people on this team will likely shift over time. And so it seems appropriate that that should live within a department. I think it's most appropriate to say CEDO, right, which is where staffing has been supplied. I know that's a bit in flux right now, and there's some dialogue about it, but it does seem appropriate to live within a city department and be maintained continuously. And whomever that staff person is in charge of coordinating the videos, pulling them together, and editing and sharing that information out to make it accessible to folks. And I think that happens in conjunction with that website that we've been talking about for quite some time.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the meantime, what I could do is I can get started on that shared document so we can at least have each put in information on stuff so we can all have items. And I think it was going to be things like, places with, I think it was going to show places like accessible parking, information about how, people out of state can know that they don't need to pay for parking if they have placards. Places with accessible bathrooms, changing tables and some items. So we can get started on that. So at least we have a working table on that. And then to Laura's point, and somehow we can link that as, and I don't know anything about the code thinking about how that would work. I don't even know where we would obtain something like that. But, that's something we can start. But I think the first part is for us to work on the shared document stuff and kind of see what information we can put in there. Anything else?
The only other thing I might bring to light, and also just want to be clear, this is more pertinent to City of Burlington staff members, but I think it impacts the larger community, as that the Community Economic and Development Office did put together a training on making our services accessible to people. So making sure that our staff members know how to do or get in touch with translation services, whether that's linguistic, also from a disability lens. And that training has been launched, and it lives on something we call NeoGov Learn. So that's available to all of our staff members. So it's just another way of doing that information sharing to better serve the community. I just wanted everybody to know that that's live.
That's very cool.
Yeah, long time coming. It's actually really exciting to see it come out. And I know Ethan's not here, but he was a big part of that, making that happen.
Yeah.
And Pit Kiamanivan too.
Yeah, so I did want to provide my update, and Vanessa did mention it, if nobody else has. So, as you know, Ethan changed jobs at CEDO, so he is no longer available to be the administrative persons, but he's moving on to good things. He did a really good job. So right now, we are lacking a staff member at CEDO who will prove that administrative function of keeping meeting minutes, posting meeting minutes, doing the scheduling, I think, for the interpreters, and stuff like that. I did reach out to the head of CEDO at the time, I don't know, in Scott Rogers, saying, can we get some more administrative self? And right now, he's saying they don't have the staff for it. He's saying they're only have down to 2 people. And so right now we're kind of back to, and I think this is just an ongoing thing that we're going to have, unfortunately, happen, where we're going to have, if somebody leaves and places are understaffed, we're going to be without somebody. So as of right now, we do not have that administrative backdrop to have somebody take many minutes, post the minutes on the website, and scheduling the things with the interpreters. So I think right now, I went back and forth with Scott, who I really didn't know anything about. I'm going to probably write an email to the head of CEDU, just to say don't forget about us. To Brian Pine, if anybody has any other ideas, saying, hey, don't forget about us. We are, Director Pine, who I know and I've communicated with about the past, don't forget about us. But I guess in the meantime, the question is, what can we do, for example, for, I don't know if we're keeping minutes, but I do keep transcripts. And I know Scott had talked about moving things over, if setting to upload. So at least we have something available for people to see. We know we have our existing page. I don't know how we can get administrative, qualifications to somebody who could upload those items. I also don't know how we would handle the booking and paying the interpreters now, because I think CEDU happened to that. So I do think we need to kind of figuring out who to handle those items. So I think first and foremost, any suggestions on how we should handle the interpreters parts? I think that's the first part. Or who we can go to about that. I don't know if that's a budget item. I don't know if that was something we should do to Catherine.
I think you're right. I think and it looks like Vanessa said the same thing. Brian Pine is probably the first person to start with. Scott's team is specifically the team that I think at CEDO has lost a couple people and they're down pretty far. But my understanding is that Brian has other people that have been filling in.
Okay.
One of the pieces, and I can talk a little bit about it now because we're kind of on that topic. By the end of October, we need to be, and earlier if at all possible, we need to be posting our agenda, our meeting, our the agenda, the meeting announcement, the warning, the minutes. If we want to post the videos, et cetera, we need to have those on Civic Clerk going forward, which requires a City of Burlington employee, staff member to be doing that. So in this case, Nate, I know you create the agendas and things like that, but we would need to have somebody on the city side working more directly with you, so that we could create that in Civic Clerk. There is a way that we can take a PDF or a Word document, whatever you want to do, and upload it without managing it directly in Civic Clerk, but it would still publish through Civic Clerk. And that's the key. That's the absolute bare minimum. I mean, we would like to see people leveraging the system because it gives a lot of power for how to use it. But again, that right now is only available to city employees. There is a way that a city employee can post a Word document and everything, but that's, like I said, the absolute minimum. We need to start doing that. And we need to work on getting the old stuff moved over into that system as well. Because we're very shortly going to stop using the Burlington City website as a document management system. And for public boards and commissions like this one and others, we will use Civic Clerk for that going forward.
Okay. So I guess maybe you and I might need to have a separate conversation. And just so you know, the way the agendas work is I usually, before I even send it out to everybody, I put together an agenda in Word
Mhm.
format, and I sent it to Ethan first, saying, okay, here's the agenda. And Ethan, he really wanted to change it. He'd look at it and say, okay, and then he would convert it, or I would send him both the PDF and anything, and then he would post it. He would post it onto the City of Burlington work page, and then I would
Right.
send it to everybody else. So
Yeah.
that's the way it kind of went. I don't know if it'd be much different. I'm certainly happy to do things differently that way and have communication about it, but it does sound like we need a City of Burlington employee um, to kind of be that conduit, I guess,
Yes.
to have that put together. So I
Theoretically,
think,
it should,
I-
sorry,
yeah,
theoretically, it should be the person, you know, it was Ethan at the time because Ethan was the one that was committed to, from the
yeah,
city to this commission. So whoever we get to replace Ethan in that world is the person that I would expect at the city who would be kind of responsible for working with you on that agenda and getting it posted, et cetera.
Vanessa, did you have something you wanted to add?
I'm essentially echoing what Scott is saying here. I think it's appropriate it be a city employee, just from a number of different responsibilities perspective. And I think it is a worthwhile dialogue, if I can just say that while I do think the conversation happens with CETO, I wonder if there's an opportunity to pull in the Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Office. Not a promise or anything like that, or saying it should happen this way, but I get curious if there might be an appetite or interest in supporting the effort.
Okay. So do you have recommendations? Like I can reach out to Brian. I mean, I can start reaching out to Brian. That's what I can certainly do. And what I would probably do is what I did before, is I'd probably CC Vanessa and Scott and maybe Catherine, in
Catherine
that
would be
email.
appropriate because of the
Yeah,
budget piece.
yeah. And just saying, what can we do to move this along? Is there any other divisions within CEDU that may be able to help us with that? And then with regard to the materials, um, Scott, I can send you the files of everything I have. I don't know if we can upload, like I have basically the work page, the page Burlington Assessment Committee, the workman's page, which has there, pretty much has everything except this most recent agenda I sent out.
Yeah, and
That
I have to look, we may have already pulled all that information
yeah,
over. So I'll check just to make sure.
the
But
big question, the big question for you is the YouTube stuff that I have there. Is do I how would I can certainly send you the link to it and we can move it over. I don't know how that would go. Or if it's needed. I mean, I think we get like a whopping like 3 views of it, so I don't even know who's looking at it.
I think we'd probably be okay with having a link for the stuff that's there. And then we would
Okay.
have a conversation about what a lot of people are doing now is you're recording it here, for instance, and I don't know if you're recording it to your computer or to a Zoom account, but we can export the file and then upload the video of
Okay.
this meeting specifically into
Yeah.
Civic Park. We can do that for all those. So we can make all that work. But I will check to find out if we were able to pull everything off the webpage. My guess is we may have been able to, since it is all there. We may have been able to pull it down and get it. So I'll find out for sure.
Okay. So I will reach out to Brian and see what can be arranged if we can get anything. But it really sounds like in order for this, this administrative part to move forward, and for a lot of it, we're going to need to have a City of Burlington employee doing something. I might include Catherine. I do just want to make sure we have the interpreter services being able to be scheduled and paid while this happens. So I don't know how quickly it's going to move, but I do want to make sure that is moving forward. And I do know we had talked about one of the things on the agenda were these micro grants that we had talked about that. Maybe in the upcoming year, thinking about little projects where we have little things like $2,000, $2,500 where people could make bids to help improve accessibility to certain areas. And that all went through Catherine last time. It would be good if we had some kind of official application or something where people could come in, or some notification, or um, you know, to do that, but I think that'd be helpful. I know Sophie provided a lot of feedback on that, and I also know Catherine had feedback, and they're not here. So that could be something that we can talk a little bit more about the next meeting. Um, okay, so it sounds like that end needs to be taken care of, and I'll reach out to Brian. The only other thing I have really, unless other people have other things to Adams, is I know we keep on talking about doing trainings to the community. I know we had some community up here is whether we want to do a in-person training to the community, get an announcement out, whether it may be on ADA 101 or something like that, where we provide the community, which would be held by the committee at one of the venues, either at a state of Vermont thing. And we had talked about doing that. And we can certainly do it that one or two, because that was one of the things that when the committee was originally putting together 1, 2, or 3 trainings a year, where we reach out to the community and reach out to them and do some things, so that, or whether it be something for, I know Vanessa had talked about having training materials for employees, where we have either PowerPoint slideshows or something up. I think I do want to kind of revisit that as we're going. It sounds like Ethan and Vanessa were able to put something up, but even if we get more materials about how to kind of put some of these training items for people to learn some things. So I don't know if people have ideas about what trainings they think might want to go to the community. Again, I always go to ADA 101 or anything like that, or how we want them to be done. Do we want to be, and we talked about this, videos for footage? Do we want to be uploading just like videos of trainings that have been done in the past? I don't know if anybody has any suggestions.
I think it could be a both and I remember Laura S. Actually, at one point, you had provided even a series of links of things that your organization has done and things at the state level. I think it's important always to be mindful of not creating brand new content unless we absolutely needed to, depending on the audience, but really pulling from really excellent materials that are out there and redistributing it. And there's a lot of different ways that I think we can do that, at least at the city level. I can certainly come in talking about how we utilize our tool, and it can be as simple as uploading a PowerPoint, or we could even say, here's a list of excellent websites and resources and videos, and we actually give that to people in sort of a set package versus individualized. So there's a couple of different ways that we could get at it. I would essentially just need to be supplied with the information and maybe even a half hour, 15-minute long conversation with whoever on this team wants to be able to get it out there. And we would discuss it as a committee before it went live to city employees. The only caveat is that information wouldn't be readily available to, let's say, community members, right? It's really for staff members at the city that's regular full-time employees, but it also includes temporary staff as well as interns. So I don't differentiate based on their FTE.
Well, we may be able to do something like have the same materials and have them modified for city employees, but then use kind of like the same step point to get them to the community at large. I guess again, the point is, where would we put it on? That might be somewhere as we're making these changes for the website to be moved over. But again, it also goes, should we just have a good old-fashioned training someday where we invite the community members to do that? I will say some of the I did a few of these way. I mean, 2015, 16, 17. And we did them, and attendance was spotty at best, really focusing on Fair Housing Act, ADA, and transportation. And that's certainly something we could do again. I mean, it's been years and years and years since we did that. But that's also something we could do and even get some people up. But just some things to think about as we are moving forward and when to do them. I do think right now the more pressing thing is making sure we get that administrative support and also moving everything over to making sure everything is moved over to the right server for the City of Burlington website. And also providing that information, that shared document where we can just provide accessibility features for people. And what I'm going to do is I'll take my blank template and I'll add some stuff in there, and then we can start passing that along and figure out how to best modify that and do that, and then figure out some way to get it shared. Anything else? Anybody else have anything they want to add? Questions or concerns?
Nate,
Laura,
okay.
I have
John,
something
and
for,
Laura.
I have something for other business if we're at that point.
Yes, let's do, it doesn't matter, I don't know who went first. We have John or Laura. Somebody you can go first. Laura, you're up. John muted himself.
Okay. So I was gonna bring up that Main Street's construction is out for bid right now. I don't know exactly when they plan to start as we await a contractor submitting to the city. It could be as early as November, or it could be next spring. But why I've come to this committee with this topic is that accessibility through a construction site is always a challenge for staff, both to ensure a contractor follows what we ask them to do and just doing it in a way that actually is user-friendly. I think it would be worthwhile, once I know the schedule for Main Street, to have a reasonable amount of conversation at this committee if you're open to it. And also, kind of like the bird idea, find a way for this committee and or those you are connected with to be able to give us feedback quickly if there's areas of concern that the community encounters and are shared with you.
No, I think that's a fantastic idea. And even, I'd even almost want to take it a step further, Laura, is if somehow if we could do as some, I'm just trying to think about as things are going on, maybe to even have a site visit about when things are being done and members of the community be there. And I'm talking about maybe someone in a power chair, maybe from VABVI, someone from different representing different disability groups to kind of talk about, what might be the best paths forward and some things like that. I do think that that's very important and inclusive. Maybe someone with mobility issues, somebody with vision issues, and somebody with hearing issues, just kind of looking in and trying to figure out ways that we could have make sure there are accessible roundabouts and ways that are really pointed out. Because yeah, I've certainly been there where I've encountered a detour that takes me down a path that's like, okay, I'll take my chances almost going through the construction zone than going out these. But yes, definitely, Laura. Thank you.
I would appreciate, if we can come out of this, maybe even finding that community partner that is willing to look at our scenarios that are challenging to mitigate and the option of solutions that come out.
Yeah. All right, John.
Thanks, Nate. Laura, that's great that you're already ahead of that. Wondering if the micro grants that you all are talking about distributing, maybe they're too small, but I just wonder if there are any businesses on Main Street that would sort of take the upgrades to the street as a challenge to make sure that accessibility extended through their door.
Yeah. I will say that Catherine touched on this, and it's going to be, the answer is it depends. I think she said she thinks if it's small enough, maybe, but really the funds should be kind of towards municipal and public projects. She
Okay.
did not completely slam the door shut on it, depending on the size, but she did say that, if it's a smaller amount of funds and it's for like the general opening to do some things, that would be something, but she did say it might be difficult to weave as the funds are for related to municipal entities, but she was not completely closed off to the idea.
Got it. Well, I can provide a quick update on the Oak Ledge Playground project and other related accessibility projects at Oak Ledge. Good news about the playground is that our custom-made slide has been delivered along with all of the hardware used to install it. The less than good news about that is that because of the flooding and because of the pipe leaking under the Winooski, our contractor is delayed on their restart until the week of the 11th of September. but we are still in line to complete the playground before the end of the season and have a grand opening, probably now looking at October rather than September. But we have incrementally opened some pieces, and if I can I share a screen? Is that all right,
Yes, I
Nate?
think I made it so anybody can share, but let me know if you can't. If you get that little block off, let me know and I'll make you a co-host.
Okay.
Can you get it? Or let me.
I'm trying here.
Never mind. I just made you a co-host just to make sure.
Okay.
That's not really far off, John, though. That's not bad. I mean, unfortunately, they're being pushed off, but if I know when you initially talked about it was September, so
Right.
October's not super bad.
Yeah. Can you see the photo now?
Oh, good parking spots.
So we have been able to get online. We've got 6 brand new accessible parking spaces. And as you can see, everything about the way they're put together is accessible. There's no curb, ample space for vehicles on either side to access the walkway. And there are 2 spaces down at the left end where the barrels are that are EV charging stations that are also accessible. We essentially started off with 8 accessible spaces and then converted 2 of them to share. You can see right here a charge point dual EV charger. So we're pretty happy about that. You can see the playground in the background, and then we're also out to bid on some modifications, pretty serious modifications to the restrooms. So the work at Oakledge continues, and hopefully next time, I think Sophie will be in attendance. We'll be announcing the opening of the playground.
That's great. And I do wonder if maybe some of these funds can I know you were having the celebration, John, but maybe we can see if the Burlington Advisory Committee can help provide some funds for the celebration or something like that. That might be something that we could do. I don't know if that's what you think is necessary or not, but it could be something.
I might even rather see those funds go to something maybe more tangible and just to encourage this group to participate and maybe even play a role that really helps promote the existence and the good work of this organization. I think since we've started that project, this committee has really ramped up its status and the work that it's doing. So that's great.
It's great. Okay. Laura, your hand is raised.
Along those lines, the opening of the playground would obviously hope to provide a celebratory opportunity for those who might be mobility challenged or otherwise have impairments, where celebrating at this playground would be important. Would one of those grants to maybe provide other types of support services or outreach to make that a more comfortable experience? Parks does a pretty good job promoting to what they know, but this is certainly one of those areas that might stretch our what we have available to us, and maybe we aren't thinking about how to support that type of opening just because we haven't experienced that. And I don't know if one of those grants might be that type of use.
Yeah, we could certainly talk about it. I know there is a planning meeting, although I'm not able to make the 25th date that was supposed to be scheduled on it, but we could bring that up for discussion. Because I do know there is a planning meeting for the celebration to come up, and that could be brought up.
I just want everyone to know that that's a fly on my camera.
Yeah.
It's been getting closer and closer, and now it landed right on it, and I don't even want to shoo it away. But Laura, I don't know if you're thinking, oops, there it goes. If you're thinking of something specific, but I certainly concede that there's a ton of stuff that we don't necessarily know how to do. And I think it would be a great tie-in if this committee comes up with an idea for you all to sponsor some further accessibility services or something during that event. And I think that makes a ton of sense.
It could be, maybe we could use the funds as trail. I'm just thinking about, but it isn't a bus hub, but even transportation, maybe so we could do something to get like maybe some carriage, some SSTA vehicles or something to bring people to it, or some other
Yeah.
features. That might be a good way to do that. Reaching out to SSTA, to paratransit vehicles for people who may not be. It might be a good way to get people who are not in the immediate area over to the area who might not otherwise be able to do it, and then they'll find it and go like, "Oh, this is great." So I do think of that as a transportation via avenue to get some people who might not otherwise be able to make it. It's maybe that we can find a way that we can use the funds to pay for transportation to get people there. That is one thing I think might be a good use of it.
Okay,
Yes,
open
and
to it.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
What's
Sorry, I
that?
was just going to say the Vermont Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, we have a volunteer driver program that typically the Division for the Blind and Visually Impaired pays for through Voc Rehab. But like I could foresee, I mean, with enough advance notice, maybe also it would be worthwhile to partner with the Division for the Blind and Visually Impaired. And think about using the volunteer drivers to get folks there.
Yeah,
with visual
absolutely.
impairments.
Yeah.
Again, that would be great. So many of the organizations that we're talking about actually played a role in the development of the design. And if we could emphasize that by having some of them provide these services, I think that's also a great tie-in.
Okay. I think the first part of that would be to reaching out to Catherine and kind of saying what could be done. I do like the idea of the volunteer drivers. I also like the idea of maybe seeing if we could get some, vans that have the lifts and stuff to be able to bring some other people who may not otherwise be able to make it out there to take a look at that area. So that would be some good. So that is a good way to end this meeting. I'm thinking about that. And we do have to get burning on that because the opening is in October. It would be meaning to reach out to the right people. Okay. We are at 3:58. So I don't know if anybody has anything to add before we go. I believe our next meeting is September 18th. And we will talk to you then.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Hey, Nate, this is
Yeah.
Virginia. Just so you know, I'm already booked through December.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
it's not like a rush to figure out.
Okay. That's good to know. I just want, I want to make sure if
Well,
anything happens. I didn't know.
But, on behalf of all interpreters, I thank you.
Yeah.
And Laura, obviously. But it's not a huge rush because I am booked through the 18th.
Okay, you're booked to that. And I would hope we can get some administrative staffing, but even if we don't, we just want to make sure, because it's always great to have the ASL interpreter there for Laura and anybody else who joins
The
us.
recording.
So,
Yeah.
yep. Okay. Sounds
All
good.
right. Have a great rest
All right.
of your day. Bye.
You too. Bye.